Hey, this is Doug Giles. You're watching Warriors and Wildmen. Rich, that wasn't as good as a wind-up as the last episode. Should I do it again, or shall we mosey on?
Let's start to try it again. We'll just play that. You keep it, but let's roll and let's try again. This is real life. This is how we roll.
Hi,
3,
y'all.
2, 1.
This is Warriors and Wildmen. How's that?
Oh,
is that better?
Fantastic. I was feeling the energy.
For the uneducated, the uninitiated, I'm talking to you, the newbie. Warriors and Wildmen is all about courage, character, and legacy. Can you dig it, Rich? I know you can.
Oh, I like that, man. That's without those three things, you can forget it.
Yeah. It's not about perfection. It's not about religiously dotting every I and crossing every T. It's about courage. It's about character, and it's about legacy.
Let me jump in there real quick, Doug.
Go.
On courage, character, and legacy, something I was thinking about. I was teaching the boys this the other day because I was teaching them about being men, right? And they're young, they're teenagers. But I told them this. I said, you know, when you go to college, whatever you want to be, doesn't matter if you want to be a school teacher, you want to be a surgeon, you want to be whatever you want to be. No matter what, on the way to your degree, you have to take the generals. You have to take, math. You have to take, reading. You have to take that stuff. English class. You have to take those things. No matter what, you have to take
the basics.
And I said, so until you figure out what you want to do, don't go there and take 57 things in college and then change your mind 57 times. While you're figuring it out, take the generals. Because no matter what, you can't do anything else without those, right? Okay. Yeah. So then I flipped it around and I told them, look, in life, in being a man, there's some generals. No matter what you're going to do in life, here's some basics that you have to have. Because if you're gifted and skilled in other areas and you lack this foundation and these generals, you will fail no matter how good you are. And so when we talk about character, courage, legacy, those are the generals of life. They're the generals of being a man. And no matter what you do or who you are, you have to develop those in your life or you will fail regardless of your gifting and your effort.
That's the funky bottom line bass note of manhood, man. It's the soup du jour. It's the de rigueur.
That's it.
And it's what we're serving here on Warriors and Wildmen. Hey, speaking about courage. Now we talked a couple of podcasts ago about being an encourager, which is great. Because there's a lot of people that are getting freaking sucker punched by life.
Yep.
And they don't need you being Eeyore the Grim Reaper when you're around them. You got to pump them up, man.
Your whiny, introspective, dark, deep, emo self.
You got to put courage into those flagging souls because that's what the Holy Spirit does to us.
Yep.
It's what good amigos do to us.
Yep.
So freaking be one to somebody else.
Yeah.
And but courage, man, the Parkland High School shooting took place, and horrible thing that Nicholas Cruz, the little punk who said demon voices told him to do it. Hey, before we get into the courage thing, and Rich, help me here, because you're a pastor.
Death sentence.
I used to be. I've delved in some study on demonology. Look, I'm not an exorcist. I'm not Father Marin from that hit movie. But I have looked at it a wee bit and experienced some of it. Demons can't usually take control of your body unless you allowed them to. So if the devil made Nicholas do it, then old dipstick somewhere volitionally gave them the ability to manipulate him. Thus, it is his primary responsibility.
That's right.
And not whatever frickin' demon attached himself to his sad little 19-year-old life.
Hey,
Am I wrong?
We are commanded to possess our own soul. We're not allowed to give it up to somebody else. And if you go to a palm reader or some type of weird occult thing, they always ask you to give them your hand. You are holding hands with the freaking devil. So just because he held hands with the devil and he thought he was going to a walk in the park, at some point when you hold hands with the devil, guess what? Payday's coming. And you earned it. You owed it. And here's another thing, Doug. I don't care what your motive is. You just went in and mowed down kids. Right. Death sentence. That's Bible,
Exactly.
baby. You know why? The death sentence is not because it's not a punishment. It's a protection. And I don't care what your motivation is. You are dangerous to people forever. You cannot rehabilitate someone who goes into a school and shoots kids. So you know what? We shouldn't rehabilitate. We should annihilate. It's time to drop the hammer and send a message to the rest of the little turds.
Yeah, and you're not alone on that. And a lot of people think, man, Doug and Rich, you guys are, you guys are nuttier than a squirrel turd. You run extreme. Well, okay, let's take a guy like C.S. Lewis. I don't think he's an extremist. A very staid and solid and educated and Oxford former professor, taught medieval literature. He said, if I killed somebody and I did it, you know, with malice and forethought, and then between the killing and the actual sentencing, I became a Christian. He said, I would still think it just to put me to death for the crime that I committed.
Boom.
My soul would go to heaven, but you know what? I'm not going to say, well, man, you know, the devil made me do it, and you know, I was bullied, and you know, and I'm a Christian now. Let me go. He's like, no, kill me.
Well,
I deserve death.
Yeah,
same thing that Ted Bundy did. Bundy supposedly got converted.
Yeah, good.
He's like, hey, I need to die.
I hope he did. I hope he did. I hope he went to heaven, and we put his body where it belonged, in the ground.
This crap about, hey, Rich, every mistake I've made, every one of them, some of them, the powers of darkness were greatly involved in my deception. But you know what? I opened the door. It was me, man. It wasn't like, oh, man, the demon just came and got me. And then it just made me do that stupid stuff. It's like Ted Haggard. He's like, well, the devil really was on me. Hey, the devil made you call that gay prostitute and snort crystal meth off his abs? I don't think an angel was involved with it.
No.
But you know what? You open the door to that kind of crap, you're going to get unclean spirits joining you.
Hey, man, even Bono sang about that. He said, I held the hand of the devil in the night, and it was cold, and I cried. You can hold hands with the devil, but there's going to come a time you got to pay the fiddler, man. You got to pay the piper.
Right. Again, I think it's I think it's blame shifting.
Yep.
I think it's gross dysfunction, and I think it takes away the power if you really want to change. As long as you got some outside evil force, then you got an excuse to be a dillweed.
Well,
when it's on your decision, hey, that's on you, man.
They're trying to say, well, yeah, maybe he's crazy, and of course they always do that. Hell yeah, he's crazy. And you know what? There's a cure.
That ain't normal.
There's a cure for that. Couple injections lined up on a table that strangely looks like a cross. Put them on it, open the curtain, slap in the needles, push the button. You know, sorry, I don't even want to watch you on the news anymore. See ya.
You know, one of the things that I found disgusting was his public defender, Rich. His public defender. Oh, he's confused. Oh, daddy didn't love him. Oh, his mommy died, you know, back in November. Oh, when he was in 3rd grade, you know, he starred as Peter Pan in the school play, and daddy showed up 5 minutes late, and that's why he liquidated, you know, 14 students, 3 teachers or administrators, and wounded 50. Hey, public defender, go blank yourself. That's crap.
Yeah.
And like Rich said, here's what should happen to that kid. He should be expedited to an execution, capital punishment. He shouldn't sit on death row and cost us, you know, $180 to $250K a year as he waits for this to occur in the next, 20, 25 years, Rich? And here's another thing.
I say march him out onto the school grounds and cap him right there and put up a memorial. This is what happens if you shoot up our school. Yeah.
That's a great idea, man. And also, I think that we ought to drag what's the guys who's heading up the FBI, Ray, and all the other guys in I think it was in Mississippi, the FBI department down there, and also in Miami. You knew about this. This happened on your watch. You dropped the ball. You can't say, oh, we didn't know. You go to their house 39 times because this guy's a violent nuisance. Everybody and their friggin' dog knows that this kid is a bubble off level. The FBI was warned in September and visited him 6 weeks prior to him going off and killing people, he should have been completely incarcerated, or he should have been put in some loony bin down at Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami-Dade. But no, let him run, let him do his thing, and then all of a sudden, blame Trump in the NRA. How about the FBI?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, let's talk about what it must have been like to be those kids or those teachers in that school when some lunatic comes into a gun-free zone, ready to prey on the innocent and the unprotected.
Well, going back, and excuse me for getting derailed on that. As you can tell, I run hot. Going back to the whole topic of courage. Look, I get the gym teacher. I think it was a geometry teacher. There's another either teacher, administrator, I can't remember right now. I'm not losing my mind, just my memory. That were killed protecting students. I get that as an adult. They're raised in a different time. They're raised in a different era where that was just, status quo, just like you said. It's a general basic tenet for an adult to go into courage mode and to protect the weak and the younger and stuff. But man, these two bros, these teenagers, 15 years old, Peter Wang and what's the other guy's name? Tony Borges, I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Both of them killed, both of them teenagers. One of them opened the door and allowed just all the kids to pass through him, and he took it. He took one for the team, man, and he died. Yeah, and the other one's wounded, shot 5 times, Rich, blocking that shooter from shooting his mates. 15 years old, as far as I'm concerned,
dude, champion.
I salute you, man. Absolutely, because that's weird behavior for the narcissist, newbie in Generation Z or Y or whatever the hell it's called now.
Yeah, the Bible says greater love has no man than this, than he would lay down his life for his friends. And we know that that's not just a spiritual concept. It's absolutely a physical concept. And when you have a young person that steps out like that and does that, look, they understand very well what's going on. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and say that they're probably less confused than the other kids. They address the situation. They saw what was going on. And you know what? Something inside of them, the champion part of them, rose up and they made a decision knowing what could and probably would happen, and they did it with full knowledge. That's not just, I didn't realize what I was doing. Both of those young men put themselves in harm's way, understanding exactly what's happening because a dude's shooting. And they went towards, come on, man, those guys, that's courage right there.
I got a couple of buddies we do stuff with, Purple Heart families, and who've lost, their kids in Iraq, Afghanistan. Some of them, the stories are so amazing, like you said, where, jumping on a grenade, standing between, just incoming fire so that their buddies can be saved and rescued. To me, this guy was talking to a buddy of mine who lost his son. He's like, well, he goes, it's such a shame, and he goes, yeah, it is a shame. His father was saying, yeah, it's a shame. I lost, the apple of my eye. We did everything to get hunted, fished, did everything together. He goes, but you know what? He died doing what he knew was right. He was a solid Christian. Not only that, he said, he goes, I had him for 18 years, glorious years of us, again, hunting, fishing, talking about God, talking about, trying to eradicate and purge evil in the form of, Muslim extremists from this earth. And he said, a lot of people can have their kids, up until, the kid's 60 and they're like 85 or 90. And they don't spend quality time with them. There's really, nothing that they had in common. He said, me and my son, we did it. No regret. Do I wish he was still here? Do I wish I could see his grandkids? Absolutely. But, these kids, these 15-year-olds, Peter Wang and Anthony Borges, who left this earth at a very, very young age, they lived, man. They frickin' lived, all men die, but not all men live. And those two teens, in my eyes, in your eyes,
And
those
kids
were men.
And the kids
those
they'll never forget them. They'll never forget. And the people that were right there on the site they'll never forget the day that those young men stepped up and protected me and laid their life down for me. That's incredible, man. And you know what? It takes an incredible amount of courage and selflessness. And that, warriors and wild men, that's the stuff we need to start developing in our lives. And I'm going to go ahead and say that stuff didn't just show up that day.
Yeah.
That stuff, that's character, man.
Yeah, I was gonna say I would love to talk to his folks. I'd love to find out, what they taught him, because, like you said, the basic instinct of animals and human being is haul ass.
Self-preservation, man.
It's not fight; it's fly. And these kids went into the fight mode, which, again, 15 years old. I mean, and you look at them, you look at both of them, they're not big, burly dudes. They're not like, these, Incredible Hulk or like Dwayne Johnson. They pick, these guys are just skinny, typical little teenagers, man.
Yep.
That just turned into just not on my watch, mother, you know what? They were not going to allow that punk, that piece of crap, Nicholas Cruz, to liquidate their buddies. It was over their dead body. And I tell you what, man, if we have a Warriors and Wild Men award that we ever get out, posthumously, it goes to Peter Wang and Anthony Borges, because you know what?
Let's make an award and let's send it to his parents. Let's talk about that. And we'll figure that out another time. Yeah. But we need to send something. They probably won't even care. Probably get but so what? We just should honor and respect people who live like that.
Yeah, they exemplify what we're talking about, and everybody's like, well, if you encourage people to do that, the people are just going to get hurt. Again, you're looking at life through a weird, selfish prism. Yeah, you might get hurt, but you might save 20 other people. You moron.
Well, did you?
And you might die.
Did you watch the movie, the movie about the terrorist attack in Paris on the train?
Yes. Yeah.
And that's a perfect example. It's a perfect example. Somebody decided, I ain't going to sit here and watch these people die. I'm not going to sit here and wait. But courage came up inside of somebody, and they decided to make a difference. And that's what we need. We need people to be like. And Warriors and Wild Men, check it out. You don't get to be on this show. Now, listen, if there's a time to get out of there and you can get away and people can get away, hey, there's definitely a time for that.
Right.
Okay, I'm not saying be an idiot. But if it's going down and you got to protect somebody who lives the godly life, what we are called to do, we are called to be the ones that step up. We're called to be the ones that make a difference.
And, from the get-go, when we launched this podcast and stuff, we had 4, principal things that we were hammering. A guy's a provider, a protector, a hunter, and a hero.
Yep.
And, I don't know if these guys were bringing home the drachmas, probably not as a teenager. But, oh, my God, man, I don't know if they hunted. But, oh, my God, did they show the protective nature of a man as a teenager?
As a man, Doug, like a man.
Yeah, like a man type stuff. Teenagers, these boys. And, again, that to me, that goes to show, you don't have to be, again, these burly, knuckle-dragging, scary type cartoon versions of a man. These kids, I look at them, I'm looking at their pictures right now. They don't look scary at all. But you know what? They did man shit when the chips were down. They ponied up. And like you said, Rich, man, that stuff is taught and caught.
Yeah, absolutely.
They stewed in some juice. I don't know what movies. I don't know if they're Christians. I don't know if their parents are like, hey, boys, if any kind of crap goes down, you save people. You step in.
Come on.
If you can. Like you said, if it's feasible. And that's the only way that you could be saved or your friends are going to be saved, then you got to throw down. That would be very interesting to find out, brother.
I was just reading an excerpt from The Art of War, and we'll talk about that on the next podcast, but I was reading an excerpt for that, and it was talking about the death grounds, or the fighting, the battlefield, the part of the battlefield where there's no hope, you're going to die, and then what's inside of you comes out. There's no hope, there's no plan, you got to be a champion. And you know what? Those boys chose, because they could have got away, they chose the death ground.
Yeah.
They put themselves in a place It's overwhelming to me. Really,
Heavy
really
stuff,
seriously,
bro.
it's emotional to me
Heavy
right now
stuff, man.
thinking about
Yeah.
it, that these young men at 15 years old contemplated that and put themselves in a place where they didn't think that they could survive, but it mattered to protect. That's impressive stuff, man.
Yeah, and especially if you look at the Snapchat videos and the other videos that were uploaded, and you were hearing again that 223, that AR-15, it's spitting out those 22 caliber bullets at 3,000 feet per second in an enclosed hallway that's probably center block and concrete, and just hearing the bam, 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 and you're going into the buzzsaw.
Yep.
And to do all that kind of mental prep in nanoseconds,
It's championship stuff, man.
No, it's bow and kiss the ring. That's all you can do.
That's courage. Those young men deserve respect.
Yeah. Well, Peter Wang, he was a junior ROTC cadet, and there's a petition that we put on Clash. The necessary goal is 100,000 people for him to get a full honors military burial, and he got it. So
that is what I see. That's legit right there. That's legit. When we think about school shootings and young people under fire and showing courage, Columbine, that was a lot of years ago, and then Cassie Bernal, famous story, the two guys that were going through there shooting these kids, they had all day, they had all the time they wanted. And they literally walked up to another kid and asked, "Do you believe in God?" They said, "Yes." Boom, they shot him in the head, killed him. And then they went to Cassie Bernal, put the gun to her head, and asked her if she believed in God. And she looked at him in his eyes and said, "Yes, I believe in God." And that's the last thing she said. He pulled the trigger. She went to heaven. But I'll tell you what, man, that kind of stuff right there, that's the courage that God put in. You know what? We have not been given a spirit of fear.
Yeah.
But of love, power, and a sound mind. We don't have a spirit. That doesn't come from God. Courage comes from God. Yeah. And she was a hardcore Christian,
Yeah, and, like with Peter and Tony, the two guys that died at Parkland, which, by the way, is in a very nice neighborhood. Two of our good buddies that we lived with in Miami for a long time moved out there because the schools were so great, and it's such a great neighborhood. So this stuff doesn't just happen in inner city, hood rat thug zones. Anyway, where were we going with that?
You're talking about those two young guys.
Yeah, the two young guys. I'm getting old, bro. I can't remember. I can't remember. Throw me a bone. Here's aside from my memory lapse and in the onset of dementia that was just manifest right there in my senior moment. One thing that I'd like to close with before we shut this thing down: Christian parent. Two things. Here's my rant, Rich. Two things for the Christian parent. Number one, tell your kids if they see something, say something.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay? It's not judging. You're not being a jackass. You're not being rude. This guy was way, way off level.
Hey, and it also takes courage to say something.
Yeah. And don't, Christian parent, don't buy into this PC stuff. Those kind of kids need to be told on. They need to be supervised or incarcerated or have their firearms removed. And number two, if you see a kid that is, that is that frazzled, then man, reach out to him.
Yeah.
Don't join with the other bullies, for God's sake, and drive the kid over the edge. Reach out to him, preach the gospel to him like Billy Graham, like we talked about in the other podcast. Take him to have an exorcism. I don't know. If he's too twisted around the axle for you, get him to a youth pastor or somebody else who can try to unscramble his eggs. But for God's sake, reach out and tell if you've got that kind of ham bone in your midst.
Yep.
Rich, what do you got, bro?
Yeah, man. This is crazy times that we're living in. And I saw a video the other day, and the guy was talking about that the problem's not a gun problem. And that's not the focus of the podcast, obviously. But the main thing that I think is he said it's an evil problem, and evil is increasing. Guns aren't increasing. We don't have more guns. It's just evil is increasing. And because evil is increasing, we need to prepare our kids for the realities of life, that these are not the times that we grew up in. Things are different. Times have changed. Our kids need to be aware. They need to know what's going on. They need to be prepared. But also, we need to teach our kids to be courageous. We need to teach them to be smart. They need to be prepared for those things. And another thing, and I know this is not something that most people want to think about. We try to avoid it. But your kids need to be prepared. Our kids need to be prepared for heaven. Because, look, man, they were just going to school. Nobody thought it was a special day. But guess what? At the end of that day, some people went to heaven, some people didn't. And that's not, I'm not trying to say who did and who didn't. And I know people get upset about that. I'm just trying to say, man, we need to be right with God. Our kids need to be right with God, because you don't know what's going to happen at the end of the day. It's the most important thing that we could do to prepare our kids for what's happening in our life.
Yes, indeed. And again, Rich and I would like to just give major props, not only to Peter Wang and Anthony Borges, but whoever raised them.
Yeah.
Oh my God, man. Did you do it right?
Congratulations.
So, Rich, what does a subscriber need to do, big dog?
Go to Warriors and Wildmen, subscribe to our podcasts, rate it, review it, comment. Go to our Facebook page, like us there, leave some stuff. We comment back. We talk to everybody that leaves us a message. So if you want to talk to us and hear our craziness, get on there and say something. And make sure you tell your friends about it. Check us out on Spotify. A lot of people are listening on Spotify. Warriors and Wildmen.